Andrejka, thank you for joining us. If you can, let's start off by talking to you about what actually motivated you to get into the energy industry and what keeps you here.
So for me, I was a finance professional at the start of my career. So I started on Wall Street as an investment banker, doing all sorts of mergers and acquisition deals, from power to utilities to retail, healthcare, so all sorts of industries. And then I switched to be an investor for a period of my life, again in New York and then in Abu Dhabi, actually, in the Middle East. And after about 8 years of sort of spending my time as a finance professional, I realized, I touched energy every step of the way, from power to utilities to, oil and gas to renewables. And I wanted to become an industry specialist versus a finance specialist. And so I took a very sort of determined decision to focus on energy, and the one place to do it is in Houston. And my husband was actually moving to Houston at that time, so the personal and professional sort of connected at that point, and I ended up in the energy space.
I imagine still takes a lot of thought and preparation to prepare for. What about a significant career milestone? Can you share that with us as well?
I look at my career and there were many milestones. I don't think there was one that I could sort of point to that was, the life-changing experience. I think initially I really was into sort of international relations. I was working at the World Bank. I was with the UN doing various projects, and I love that. I loved international relations. And then I realized I actually need to get a skill set. So I switched into finance, and that was an important milestone. Being an investment banker, it sort of gave me the toolkit and the discipline that I'm still benefiting from, 15 plus years later. And then as an investor, I sort of realized, I love being an owner. I love being on the investment side. So that was another important realization, and, getting more skill set under the belt that I didn't necessarily have before. And then finally, I think the entrepreneurial sort of track, so joining the first portfolio management company, Goodnight Midstream, and then going into companies after that, I think that time joining a smaller business, growing it from nothing, starting it from scratch with the management team, and we ultimately took it public. It was a very successful business, and so that gave me the taste of entrepreneurship that I think it's very hard to sort of let go. So many different milestones in my career.
Thank you for sharing that with us. What about a challenge that you faced with being a woman in the industry? Can you share that with us?
I think everyone has their challenges in life, everyone. And so I don't necessarily look at my life as, multiple challenges, because I could wake up and anyone could and, make up 5 different challenges why you shouldn't be successful, why things are wrong and they will never be right. It's certainly, I came here 10 years ago to Houston. I didn't know anyone except for my husband. And, I'm fortunate here to sit with you today and talk about the, energy and my experience. So I think you can take a lot of the challenges that you yourself perceive as a sort of an interesting data point and sort of move forward. I think that the reason, I'm clearly different from many people in this business. I talk differently, I look differently, I come from a very different background. And so that differentiation actually is helpful, right? At first, I think you generally like being with people who are like you, but then once you sort of cross that barrier with, many people, you sort of break in, and people remember you and you are different, and you can use those differences sort of to your advantage in some way.
And really that transitions into my next question. What about advice for younger professionals maybe facing any sort of challenge like you just mentioned, or trying to find their place in the industry as well?
So I pretty much have the same advice for anyone, including my 2 little boys, is if you want something in life, you just have to work hard. And so if I look back in my life, and some of those career milestones that you mentioned, Jessica, it was just a lot of pain and a lot of struggle, and getting up every morning after you pull all-nighters or you travel, or you have a family situation to deal with, and you have to still go to work. And so it's just plowing through, frankly, just brute force. So you just have to do it if you really want to sort of not only have success, but earn the respect of sort of your peers. I would say a second thing is, making people aware of what you actually want to do in life. And so one of my sort of memorable experiences was when I started at one of the portfolio companies, and the CEO sits down with me and he asked me, and I was a VP of finance at that time, and he asked me, what do you ultimately want to do in life? And I said, well, I want to be in your seat. Who wants to be number 2 or 3 or 5? I mean, ultimately, my goal was to be number 1. And so I sort of making people aware is an example of where you ultimately want to end up. That conditions yourselves and them in what is, your goal in life. Similarly, when I was pregnant, I was an investment banker. And I sort of did a tour going around, New York and the Houston offices, and made sure that senior folks and my peers were aware that when I come back, I'm coming back as a revenue generating banker. And, I'm going to be adding value and generating business. And so sort of making sure that you're very clear, and maybe I'm too clear sometimes, but being very clear about what your ultimate goal is at a given point in life.
Good advice there. What about mentors, Andrejka? How do you feel about the importance of mentors?
Well, I would rephrase maybe the question a little bit, Jessica. I don't think about the world as sort of mentors and mentees. I think about the world of people who I choose to be surrounded by. And so obviously, when you're a child, you don't necessarily have choices. They are made for you. And I was fortunate for some good choices that my parents and people in my environment made. And then you ultimately, as you become older, you make very conscious choices about who, or you can make conscious choices about who you'd like to be surrounded by. And so I'm realizing this more and more. I'm learning now, sort of reaching a different stage in my career. I'm learning sometimes more from the people who are sort of junior to me, frankly, and younger generation, people who are in different fields, in completely different life situations. And so I don't, I have people sort of who are accomplished in my industry, but it's about the people you surround yourself by in general. In all facets of your life, not just professional, personal, every facet of your life, I think, is important. So that's how I think about it, and making those decisions very purposeful.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. And can you tell us how you feel about being involved or being honored in this group of women, very deserving from you, and there's such a dynamic group. Your thoughts on that, but also the importance of a program such as this?
I am extremely honored. I mean, like I said, I came here 10 years ago not knowing anyone and frankly not knowing much about energy, full disclosure. And so I am thrilled and honored that I am in this amazing group of women. It's a huge responsibility. I feel, we're in the 21st century here. And so we need to behave like that, all of us, I think. And so I feel that I need to contribute to that sort of force and being inclusive in general. It's not about men and women and different races or people from different backgrounds. I think it's important to be inclusive, and I'm honored to be sort of part of that force. And I take the responsibility, very seriously. So I'm excited. I think energy is going through a tremendous change. I think it's a very exciting change. And there are some things that I'm doing and I'm excited about ahead that are hopefully going to be part of that force.
What a great transition. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your time with us.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're very welcome. And for Heart Energy, I'm Jessica Morales.